how do I keep my culture alive? How do a lot of the artifacts that culture has been built around is built around the context and the environment that we were in before COVID, and now that environment has changed, so our artifacts need to change, and the way we express our culture needs to change. So how do we keep that culture alive?
I want to follow up on what you said. How do we express our culture? And I think that is what is changing. We're currently in the midst of a project, a big multinational organization, moving to a remote first philosophy, and we're having many of those conversations. And I think that what we also realize, and I think what every single company needs to realize, that if you move to a new way of working, look, there will be slight nuance changes. We cannot expect our culture now, as we are here today, to be exactly the same as it was, I can't even say a year ago, 18 months ago. We need to, that's a realization, that is a fact. But there are other ways in which we can bring those components in. So let's say a core part of your culture was storytelling, okay? Or it was the actual physical artifacts, like when you enter into the office, and this is an old organization, so there's like pictures from the founders and all. We can digitize that. Okay? As part of your onboarding, instead of taking a physical tour, we now do a virtual tour of the organization. Part of storytelling is we create platforms where people still share. It is a lot more intentional, though. Okay? It is not just in the past your culture happened, it organically evolved. And I think that is the great opportunity now for us HR professionals, is to bring that intentionality, to leaders. I think one of the questions that we're not going to have time for now is, how do I articulate that value add? And this is one of those, in my opinion, one of those opportunities is to engage with leaders and help them understand that, look, in the past it just happened, it evolved organically, but now you need to be more intentional. You need to, if you've got an introverted preference as a manager, you need to almost like schedule in your diary that, look, I need to call my people, I need to engage with them. So the intentionality has come in there, and I think, similar to that EVP at the beginning, it's also a good time to take stock of what you want to keep alive. What are those practices that you want to continue with? We see many of our clients, they're actually continuing with certain practices that they didn't have before, but that they had to bring in because of lockdown and COVID. And they found it actually to be to their benefit. But that also brought about, amplified poor leader styles and poor managerial styles. And those are not things that you want to keep alive within your organization. So again, if you don't engage with your leaders, if you don't engage with your employees, if you don't ask them what keeps them there, it will be very difficult for you to understand what is it, apologies, that you actually want to keep alive.
Okay. And I think a key component around that is I had this conversation with someone the other day, and the conversation was more around strategy, but it speaks to the point we're trying to make through culture as well as, when COVID hit and things were changing and happening fast, the question I was asked was, do I need to change my strategy? And the response I gave was, well, if the strategy was formulated well, the what of what you're trying to achieve should still be there. It's the how you achieve it.
Yes.
And I think that speaks to culture. So the what of our culture should fundamentally stay there. It's the how we get that culture across and how we facilitate it, and how we create new examples of our culture that fits into this environment. So things, if you did a lot of team huddles in person, how do I then facilitate that same psychological effect that we had around having people, and when I'm talking about team huddles, it's not just about talking about the work. It's the 5 minutes before the team huddle. It's the 10 minutes after the team huddle. It's the conversation. How was your weekend? How was your, and a lot of the, and I always say culture is 50% the stuff we know, the behaviors and the stuff on the wall and the competencies, but it's also the informal conversations that happen in the office that when COVID hit and people work from home, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, we don't have the coffees, we don't have the lunches, we don't have the chat before work, in between meetings, the how was your weekend, how's your wife doing, or your husband or your partner. Those things fell away and was actually a very key component to building relationships and culture. So a key aspect for us as human capital practitioners, understanding behavior and understanding culture, should understand and drive the importance of those small moments to reconnect. Those small things around, have you spoken to your team around how they're doing personally, as much as they're willing to share? But like those things that would normally, naturally, unconsciously happen in the workplace, that now that opportunity has been taken away. I think that's also a key focus on culture is, it's the how we do it, but also like how do we keep that, the small things that keep us connected.
I think what we also see, you sort of talk about that check-in from a manager side that has to be a bit more, I use the word intentional, is if you've got, let's say, a leader brand defined or a leader DNA or leader competency framework, you need to superimpose the digital leader on that, because there's a difference. Your core elements will still be the same, but how in this new world of work does that differ? Is it as practical as, let me put together a checklist for a manager to help them keep certain elements front of mind? That is what some of our clients are doing and what we're assisting them with, because if you see someone all the time, you don't need the checklist. But if you don't see them, then you forget about certain things because we get busy. Okay? And now more than ever, we need to intentionally engage with them. And I love that example that you shared. Your strategy won't change, but the how you execute it will change. Hence, I said that use the expression of culture. The expression of your culture will evolve ultimately, and you need to influence stakeholders to help them understand that this is the case. We cannot continue doing things like we did in the past. There's a different expectation.
And the one thing I want to add at a very practical level is, I know there's a lot of articles out there around, look, the manager must schedule personal time with the team. And sometimes I think that's hard for people to try and do an unconscious thing consciously. It's like trying to think about breathing. Like, it becomes labored. So you create these connect sessions or personal, how's it going with your family, and it kind of becomes labored in a way. So one of the key things that I implemented with my team, and I'm not saying it's the right way, but kind of as a practical example, is we have our Monday sessions, planning everything that happens for the week. But on a Friday, we call it, or my team calls it, a 3-2-1 session, where it's nothing work related, and we say, what are the 3 things that we did well this week, that we're proud of, that I'm super happy about. And it doesn't have to be work related. What are the 2 things I think didn't go well, and what can I do about that? What is the 1 thing I'm grateful for? And it can be anything. It can be, I'm grateful that my family's healthy. I'm grateful that I still got a job. And then the last one is, what support do I need from my team in this moment? And it doesn't have to be work-related. It can be a conversation around, I'm struggling at the moment, there's a lot of stuff going on at home, I need help with this. And it feeds back into kind of the topic you spoke about, psychological safety. And in that session, I'm with them there, and I'm talking about my struggles, and I'm talking about the stuff that didn't go well, and I'm talking about what support I need. And just as a practical example, that's something that you can take and you can customize it and build it. But providing some kind of framework to how these personal sessions can run gives a lot of guidance to someone that isn't in a people industry, that's maybe more in a finance or or an engineering space, that these things might not come for them as easy as it comes for us because we're used to it.
Yeah, I think it's, again, role modeling the behavior, as we already spoke about, and then just coaching and guiding, the rest of the business.